Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 10 of the Old Glory Games podcast. My name is Kyle. My partner Greg is in the house.
All right,
and we're gonna talk. We're gonna talk some NBA. Oh gosh, do we have to?
Yeah, we do.
Greg,
we do for those that still watch it. Yes.
Oh man. Oh gosh. Bear with us, guys. Bear with us. What in particular, Greg, are we going to talk about NBA?
Well, in particular, we're going to talk about the AllStar Game that happened a few weeks ago at this point. And I will admit, I watched the first half. I just couldn't watch any more of it. I was just stunned at how the game was being played. Now, to give you a little background on what led to that. So, the past couple of years, I really haven't watched the NBA hardly at all, for reasons we may get into later or in future episodes. But I just totally turned it off. I just did not watch NBA basketball for the reasons I haven't mentioned. But, you know, one of the main reasons is it's just so hard to watch. And the game is just not what it was from a fundamental perspective and just from an entertainment perspective. So I really just recently started watching NBA basketball again, but I quit watching the AllStar Game years ago because it just was not competitive and it just was not fun for me to watch. You know, when I was a kid, the NBA took the AllStar Game seriously. It was a competitive game. Now, they would give the fans what they wanted as far as seeing a bunch of fancy plays and the playground type style game that's like, you know, oh, wow, you know, if you could see all these all-stars playing against each other and basically play like they would play on the playground, that would be great to see. But after the first half of that, the second half, they got down to business and it was competitive. They were going after one another. Each conference wanted to win the game, and that was refreshing to watch. The last All-Star Game did not resemble that in any form or fashion. And even the media was lambasting the league and the players for just the total disregard for defense, resistance, basically just standing around and watch guys shoot logo 3-point shots, just drive down the lane and dunk. And, you know, you would see a more competitive game if those guys played pickup basketball.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the All-Star Game has turned into the Pro Bowl, which, by the way, is no more.
They got rid of the Pro Bowl?
Yeah. This past year, it was called the Pro Bowl Games. So they did a bunch of like competitions between the skills and all of that.
Yeah.
And the game was flag football, which I could argue it's been flag football for the past 10, 15 years. They just officially turned it into a flag football game. So, you know, it was about as non-competitive as the Pro Bowl has been the past several years. And, you know, if I want to watch a bunch of 40-foot shots and trick shots and all of that sort of thing, I'll go watch the Globetrotters. Because
exactly.
Yeah, the Globetrotters, they're great, family entertainment.
Yep.
I've been to see them in person. I watched them on TV as a kid.
Yeah.
But if I want a show, I'll go see them. But when I watch the NBA, I don't want a show. I want a competitive basketball game. Even for the All-Star Game. I'll tell you this story right quick. And this will give you an idea as to how much the All-Star Game has changed. So, as I do often, I, you know, search YouTube for like old games, you know, old boxing matches, just old school stuff that I would rather watch than watching today's product. So I pulled up the 1969 NBA All-Star Game. It was in black and white. Right? Yeah, 69, okay. Yeah. So
I'll pull up now.
You had it, and it was played in the old Baltimore Arena, if I recall correctly. And I don't know if you remember the Baltimore Arena, it had like a stage at one end of the arena. It was weird. I mean, it's like you could
high school gym.
Yeah, that's kind of what it looked like. So you could have Romeo and Juliet going on in the background while you're playing a basketball game. So I think that's where it was. And
you're right.
Yeah, you had star players like Will Chamberlain and Bill Russell, Wes Unseld, Elvin Hayes. I think Jerry
Johnson. He was awesome.
Oh yeah,
I got up on the screen. Right there.
Oh cool, yeah.
That's Eastern, that's the Eastern Conference there. Billy Cunningham, wow. Earl of Pearl, nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow. Jerry Lucas, man, this was just the East.
I'm telling you.
So by the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, you see this. If you're not seeing it if you're listening to this audio, then you're not going to see this. But just go to Wikipedia and pull it up yourself, or go to YouTube and watch this particular video.
I mean, the Big O, just the who's who of all-time legendary players. And we're looking at the West for Will Chamberlain, I mentioned him. Jeff Mullins, Elvin Hayes, Sloan, I mentioned him. Yeah. Jerry West, he was hurt, so he didn't play. But to watch these guys, and there was no playing around. They were trying to win the game.
That was Jerry West on the team. He was injured that, yeah. Oh, yeah, sure.
And can you imagine Jerry Sloan just letting somebody drive by him for a layup? Nah. No. So it was great.
Unseld? No way.
No. It was great to see these all-time legendary players playing one another competitively. I mean, to me, it was a treat to watch it. And I think the winning team, the players got like $500 a piece. So that kind of shows you how long ago that was, but they got after it. Yeah. So, yeah, but it was refreshing to watch that. If you go from watching that to watching the 2024 AllStar Game, it's like it's like comparing Spam with filet mignon. There's no comparison, and it's sad that the NBA has basically regressed to this level where the players, they really just act like they didn't care. They were just out there to basically glorify themselves and let's stand around and top each other as far as, shooting parking lot threes and let's see who can do the most spectacular dunk and, that sort of thing. And I quit watching at halftime, and I'm sure my wife heard me yelling down the hall, what in the world? Over 100 points at halftime? This is not bad. I turned it off. I could not bear to watch it anymore. So, and we talked about this some as far as the NFL is concerned, wanting it to be more entertainment than a competitive contest. And the NBA is the exact same way. They want to put on a show. Well, I want to see a show. I want to see a competitive, hard-fought, well-played basketball game, fundamentally and otherwise. And that's not what this is by any stretch of the imagination, unfortunately.
It's like a version of NBA Jam, that old Sega video game.
Yeah, that's exactly what.
Flying through the air, basketball's on fire, must be the shoes, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, they played more defense on the video game, I guarantee you.
They actually did, and it brings me to even the N1 series, which, by the way, it's as much fun. I can really get off in here. I can get off in the chess, the movie, Searching for Bobby Fischer, where you're playing speed chess versus slow chess, and it's one's fun, but it ruins your game, and one is just tactical and slow and methodical and more refined. That's all different sports. So there's a place for the N1 crew, whatever. There's a spider and all that stuff, the professor, all that stuff, all that one-on-one, no defense, Globetrotters. But for the NBA, these are professionals, right? And to your point, I mean, they should have some kind of pride in what they do. And I think it speaks to some of the culture as well. It may speak to the softness of the game. We mentioned that in other podcasts. It all comes together. But I gotta talk about the stat line. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. And if you don't know people who are watching this don't know the NBA game, just give you an idea of what the first period looked like. 53-47. Okay, that's just the first period. And like Greg said, it's over 100 points at halftime. So the second period was 51-42 in terms of points scored. And then the third period was 56-47. And then the fourth period, I think they call them periods, right? Not quarters in basketball, 51-50. And the final score is the East winning 211-186. That is, I mean, it's almost embarrassing. And if you watch some of the highlights, it's even more embarrassing because the crowd's not even cheering. It's almost like a funeral. And
yeah, that's something that struck me as well. The crowd didn't get into it at all. So they're doing all this stuff thinking, oh, this is what the crowd wants to see. That's not what they wanted to see. It was in, you know, I'm sorry for all you Hornets fans. I'm a Hornets fan myself, but it was about like watching a Hornets game. That's how quiet it was. It was like watching.
I'm a Wizards fan too, so
yeah, it was like watching the game at the library. I mean, no buzz. I mean, seriously, you and I, if we had been at that game, we could comfortably have the conversation we're having right now if we were there. That's how quiet it was and dead.
Get a latte, get a latte, you know, kick back, you know.
I mean, it would have been like they were playing in my living room. That's how quiet it was. And it was really sad. And, you know, I think the league and the owners need to step up and do something. It's like, this is embarrassing. If you want to protect the brand, I think that's one of the places you need to start. And you know, I'll pose this question to you. You know, what can be done to fix this? At this point, the culture and the way the game is played, I don't know if you can fix it. I would say, first of all, you can recognize the players for being all-pro and all-stars. That's what they do in the NFL. But either not play the game at all or let some guys that are a little bit hungrier to, you know, show what they can do, put the G League guys out there. I'd rather watch that. Let the G Leaguers play the All-Star game, or let some guys that, you know, don't play a lot and are basically playing from year to year for a spot on a roster, you know, let those guys play. Now, you might say, well, you know, who's going to want to watch a bunch of nobodies playing an All-Star game? Well, those guys are very talented too. I'd rather watch that, much rather watch that, than to watch what I just watched a few weeks ago. But overall, I don't know what you can do to fix it other than have the league basically do something and say, hey guys, if you're not going to play the game the way it's supposed to be played, we're just going to get rid of it. So what do you think about that? I mean, there's got to be a solution, but I really don't know what it is, especially the way the game is played overall today.
I think my solution would be a solution that would actually fix at least the NBA all the way down to the high school level. Because I think what we're seeing is kids mimic the NBA players.
Yeah.
So if you fix the NBA, it'll trickle down to the smaller leagues. So what I think we would need essentially is, number one, a new commissioner, or at least a commissioner that understands what we're talking about. Number two, a rule change in various areas there. And if they want to gravitate to the European style basketball for business purposes, this is a business, by the way, then fine. But at least change the NBA rules to maybe even the international style game. I'm not saying expand the lane. In fact, did the International League narrow the lane now, or is it still like a trapezoid?
As far as I know, I think it's still like a trapezoid, if I recall correctly.
Okay. I'm not recommending them do that. That's too radical. That would affect college and everything else. But we refined the rules to allow for more mid-range jumping. Maybe the 3-point line probably should stay where it is. I mean, you can't push that any further. If you do, you'll lose the baseline. You won't have a baseline 3-pointer anymore because you run out of space on the sidelines. But also incentivize inside play. And then what will end up happening there is, as the rules change, more players will come up to try and take those positions. they'll learn more post-up moves. They'll learn, how to have better spacing. And hopefully, because what's going to happen, if the rules change, then the coaching will change. Because it's all physics and, distance and spacing. Well, if you're having the rule change there, then I'm going to have to pass the ball this way to get it there effectively, or I'm going to have to do a bounce pass. When's the last time you ever seen a bounce pass, for goodness sakes? And also, and then they also condition to more rebounding. If you have closer end shots, rebounding is more important because the ball isn't bouncing 30 feet, from a three-pointer. Because if you're shooting it from 22 feet out, it's going to bounce 28 feet out. So if it's a 2-foot jumper, it's going to bounce 1 foot, which means having a box opposition is going to be more important, which means you have to have bigger bodies down low. So it all fixes itself with the rule change. But I think ultimately, and this is where it gets hard to your point, the mentality. How do you fix that? How do you fix a mentality of what we have now in this microwave mentality? And I hate to say it, but the NBA being what it is, 99% black for the most part, the black fatherless rate across the board is just horrible. And that plays into the culture of, that's a whole nother discussion, but that's part of the culture. And this wanting to go and get mine for me with the, and one more thing, by the way, Greg, get rid of the, or at least limit or regulate the naming license thing in college basketball, because that's just giving more mentality for me get mine instead of for the team. It first started out, I'm gonna leave high school to go to NBA to get mine, but now you can be a scrub on the bench who basically gets no playing time, but you have a nice Instagram and you're pulling more money than anyone on the team. So those things I think come into play, but to your point, I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't either. There's just so much money to be made, even with the way the game is played today. So I went from, when I was a kid, I watched every NBA game that came on TV. I went from that to maybe as late as, I don't know, late 90s, early 2000s. I didn't watch as much regular season NBA basketball, but I watched the playoffs because that is where the intensity ramped up. And that was really what the game was all about. If you wanted to see great NBA basketball, watch the playoffs back, even late 90s, early 2000s.
Oh my, it was incredible.
Oh yeah. Today, I watch the games, but the games watch me, if you know what I mean. I mean, it's on for background noise. I don't really sit there on the edge of my seat and watch these games because, to me, it's just so unwatchable. If I'm doing fantasy or something, I may turn it on just to see what my guys are doing. But beyond that, I don't really follow regular season NBA basketball like I used to. And it just speaks to the way the game is played. And I dare say, if you can't get the fans to care about the regular season, and the players obviously don't care as much about the regular season, load management, I'm not going to play back-to-back games. I want to be ready for the playoffs. Now the players are pitching a fit because the league has mandated that you have to play a certain number of games in order to be eligible for postseason awards. And rightfully so. Seriously.
Yeah.
It'd be nice on my job if I said, well, boss, I can't work back-to-back days. And, I need rest, but I want my full salary.
Yeah.
I still want that, but sure. I just can't work under these brutal, oppressive conditions. These guys are making multi-millions of dollars to play a kid's game. They're getting paid ridiculous amounts of money to play a game that they used to play for fun. And, AAU just as well as I do. Those kids would play in tournaments, sometimes 3 or 4 games a day. And they'd come right back the next day and play more. What happened to that? They went from that to, oh gosh, all this brutal schedule on these nice airplanes and these hotels. Oh, and these, and all these trainers and cutting edge technology when it comes to recovery. It's like, oh, this is just brutal. How dare the league require us to play a certain amount of games to get, postseason awards and accolades. And oh, by the way, I'm sure some of those contracts put stipulations in there. It's like, okay, well, if you're going to get this bonus or that bonus, you've got to play this many games, or if you win this award, you get this and that sort of thing. So it's just mind-boggling how just the mentality of the players, to where it's just so unreasonable to ask them to play every game. I mean, if you think about it, my job and your job, we show up for work every day unless we're on vacation, and the boss, that's what they pay us for, and that's what they expect. NBA players shouldn't be any different. Shouldn't be any different, especially considering how much they are making. So I think the mentality of today's player is just sad in my opinion. But they run the league. They just about tell the owners what to do. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. Okay. So a few years ago, I think the league tweaked the scheduling to where there's not as many back-to-back games because the players were whining about it so much. I'm like, come on, guys, you're living the life. The least you can do is get out there and give it, if you're not hurt, get out there and give it 100%, because you've got people paying hundreds, if not, thousands of dollars to show up and watch you guys play. And for you to just sit there chilled in street clothes, eating popcorn or on your phone or whatever, when you should be in there playing, that's a very bad look. But again, these guys don't care. I'm not saying all of them don't care, but the ones that stir the drink in the league, they don't care. They're getting theirs, and they're doing what they want to do. And as for the fans, they're like, oh, well. So, yeah, I think overall it's the mentality of the league, and that's why you're probably not going to see it go back to the way it was as far as the All-Star game or regular season games or anything else for that matter, the way the game is played in the NBA overall.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I like Jordan so much, I was never a Bulls fan, but going back to your point about the playoffs in the 90s, I mean, my gracious, it was just out of control. I mean, you look at the Knicks and you look at the Pacers, you look at I can go on. I can go, Detroit and the Celtics, Detroit and the Bulls. You can look at the Lakers and, the Lakers really weren't that big back then, actually, in the 90s. When Kobe came in, they were, but in those early 80s, 90s, and Magic Johnson, I guess they were. They've always been relative. But really, I'm more of an East guy, so I'm thinking about those guys. But one of the reasons why I like Jordan so much is the fact that, even though I didn't pull for the Bulls, I got a chance to see him play live one time. And that was because he was playing the Wizards, the lowly Wizards. And they were playing, I think it was one of their final years at the Cap Center. And one of the final games at the Capitol Center. And so the Bullets they were still the Bulls. No, they were the Wizards then. They were beating the Bulls the entire game. They were playing a great game. They were pumped up. Yeah, whatever. And so, but I was watching Jordan all the time, and lo and behold, you can see it on YouTube. This buzzer beater he did. I was behind the basket, so I got a chance to see it. Like I was within 50 feet from him on the floor watching this, and my dad was with me, and so it's like the final shot. He comes down. And he pulls up, he knocks the three. Not the three, but he knocks the final point to win the game. And one thing I remember was two things. Number one, how awesome it was. Number two, that everyone cheered. Wizards fans were cheering for it. It was just crazy to see Jordan do that. Because that year, they were going to the playoffs. No one cared. So, and what I'm getting back to what you're saying is, Jordan didn't have to play that game. I mean, and I heard a quote from him saying that he never knew what person in the crowd would be seeing him for the very first time.
Mm-hmm.
And if I went to go see the Bulls and the Wizards play, sure, it'd been cool to be my dad, get some popcorn, watch, whatever. It would have been a disappointment not to see him play. And I think they're missing out on generations down the line who are disappointed and not going to be tuned in going forward because their heroes were never there for them when they were there for them. And I think that's going to be a backlash that we'll see in the next 10, 15 years.
That reminds me of personal experience I had. So years ago, my oldest daughter, she was a huge Dwight Howard fan. She was all into Dwight Howard, right? So at the time we lived in Utah. So, and you talk about a rabid fan base, they are all into the Jazz out there. It doesn't matter how good or how bad they are. I mean, it's about like a college crowd atmosphere. So I think Dwight Howard was with the Magic at that point in time. And she's like, oh, Dad, can we go see the Jazz play? They're playing, not Utah, they're playing Orlando tonight. And I'm like, sure. So, I get on my phone, find a couple tickets, and we go to the game. Now, I don't think Orlando was particularly great at that point, so tickets were reasonable. So we go and we show up to the arena and we go to our seats, and either Dwight Howard wasn't there or he was there in street clothes, but either way, he wasn't playing that night. And you can imagine how disappointed my daughter was. It was toward the end of the season, and I don't think Orlando had a whole lot to play for, so he sat out. And that reminds me of another instance. This was some years ago, where a father, for his son's birthday, his son was like a big LeBron fan. And for his birthday, they were going to go watch LeBron. I think he was still with Cleveland, and I think they lived in Milwaukee, and they drove, I don't know how many hundreds of miles, so his son could see LeBron play. So they paid, for hotel and this and that. I think it went into the thousands of dollars. And they show up, and LeBron didn't play. And the father was just so, angry, disappointed, hurt for his son that he was disappointed like that. But I mean, the players, unfortunately, and I'm sure some of them still feel like, they owe the fans to, play as much as they possibly can unless they're hurt. Because to your point, what if somebody's seeing them for the first time, or what if this is the only opportunity they get to see that particular player? Because let's face it, the NBA is a star-driven league. It's all about the stars. That's why if you go see the Charlotte Hornets play the San Antonio Spurs, you could probably find a ticket for $10, $12. But if the Charlotte Hornets played the Lakers or, one of the other top teams in the league, the Nuggets, you're going to pay a whole lot more simply because of the stars on those teams, especially LeBron. So with that being said, and you're paying to see a particular player and you are paying a premium amount and that player doesn't play and they're not hurt, I mean, come on, the fans are really getting robbed at that point. And the league's not going to give them their money back, but they should get some kind of refund because you paid that price with the idea that you're paying this price because LeBron's coming to town. And then when LeBron is over there in street clothes, wearing a hoodie, eating a hot dog and chatting it up with his buddies, I mean, that's very disappointing on many levels. So, yeah, unfortunately, it's just a different time and a different mentality. And it's very disappointing when you see Kobe late in his career when he was all busted up. I mean, he'd be on the sidelines with ice packs on his knees and just, he had, I think, Achilles issues and all kinds of different things that towards the end of his career. But I think a reporter or somebody may have asked him the same type of question. Why are you doing this? And, again, it's like, for the people that paid to watch me play, I want to play. I don't want to disappoint them. And unfortunately, I think we've lost that sort of mentality, not in the NBA, but maybe in in sports in general. But to your point, I think in order to change the All-Star game and the way the game is played in general, the mentality is going to have to change. And at this point, I don't know that it's going to, because a premium is put on this being a show, this being entertainment, than it is for this being a competitive game.
On the screen here, I have Michael Jordan, his career in terms of how many games he's played. And for those of you who are listening to this who can't see this, I'm going to list this. Mind you, the games played, number of games in a season for the NBA is 82. I'm just going to read these numbers down here. And mind you, his second year, he was injured, so he wasn't able to play a full season. He broke his leg, essentially. 82, 18, 82, 82, 81, 82, 82, 80, 78, 17, 82, 82, 82, 60, 82 with the Wizards as an old man.
And hurt.
There before, and hurt. And so the year I saw him was probably 82, and he won. Sorry, it was 97, I believe. That was the last year that he was actually with the Bulls, I believe, and the Wizards had their last year there at the Cap Center. It was either 97 or 98. Either one. No, it could be 96. One of those last 3 years, he played all the games. So no matter what, I would have caught him in any game he played that season. Greg, you know what they could do? They could do the WNBA All-Star Game instead of the NBA Men All-Star Game, and you could get stuff like this.
This weekend in Minneapolis and ready to put on a show here at Target Center as Chelsea Gray controls the tip.
I think they're going the wrong way.
Yeah, she wasn't sure which way they were supposed to go. Nobody really was sure, and Liz Cambage says, all right, I'll take it to the ring.
Well, I mean, the way the All-Star Weekend is now, the NBA already involves WNBA players in the skills competition, 3-point competition. So it's moving in that direction anyway, because the NBA, who is a very generous sponsor of the WNBA, I'm sure they want the WNBA to, excuse me, to get as many viewers as possible. And let's be honest, they're not getting it or getting those viewers during their own All-Star game or regular season games or playoffs. So let's put them in front of an NBA crowd to see if you can muster some interest there. You know, I don't know if this will fix it, but even if you want to have like a co-ed WNBA, NBA game, not to be the highlight game, but just one of the activities of that weekend, and have some sort of competitive basketball game. Now, I know that, you know, the college season is still going on, so you couldn't have them, you know, play, you know, a college team or anything else like that. But I would say this: if there was a way you could get like a college all-star team and bring them in and have them play some NBA guys, I'd watch that too.
That's a good idea.
So to me, there are things the league can do to try to rev up the interest in the All-Star Weekend in general, because right now it's just flat. You know, they have all these other things going on to try to get people hyped up, you know, having hip hop artists and rappers and these people and those people prior to the game to try to get people hyped up. And by the time the game comes around, it's like, you know, it's just not. I mean,
yeah, it doesn't measure up to the rap concert.
No, or anything else they do leading up to the game. So I think if they try to do those sorts of things, but have it lead up to an actual competitive game, and the participants, you can decide, but have participants that have a stake in it and are serious about it, and make sure there's talent there. And again, I would really like to see, and I don't know how you would do it with the college season still going on, but again, if you could get some type of college all-star team together and have them go out there or get the national, 19 and under team or just something like that out there and play some of those guys. I would absolutely watch that. To me, that would be a lot of fun. Going to the dentist, it would be more fun than watching this year's All-Star game for sure.
In terms of the NBA in general, but do you think the All-Star game not being as competitive as it is, do you think that's a sign that the league is declining? And where do you see the league happening? Because the All-Star game, when it was really good, the league was really good. So I'm wondering if the All-Star game being bad, is the league really that bad? And are we in danger of having it go into utter decline?
I think if this happened before the rise in international players, I would say yes. But now that you have so many international stars that play in the NBA and their home countries, wherever they are in Europe or wherever, those folks are stoked about NBA basketball because one of their own, they're playing in the NBA, and these people will be up like, 2, 3 in the morning to watch them play? So people, internationally, they are stoked about the NBA. So even with the way the game is being played now, which to me is horrible, but with you having a global audience, I don't think there's going to be a decline, at least short term, right away. I think if it continues to tank as a product, as far as people wanting to watch, then it's eventually going to go down as far as interest and viewership and all of those things. But I think immediately, no, I even with the All-Star game being as bad as it was, even with game to game, the NBA being, not really fun to watch, even with all of those things, I think the league is probably still in a good place. And it would take several years of this sort of regression as far as the product is concerned before it starts really impacting the money and the viewership. Now, I will say, and going back to, guys not playing and load management and all of that, these companies and these sponsors that are paying top dollar to have commercials during regular season broadcasts where, it's the Celtics and the Lakers, but guess what? Jason Tatum's not playing, and Jaylen Brown's not playing, and LeBron's not playing, and Anthony Davis is not playing. But here you go, prime time. I mean that. Yeah. I mean, if you're
just the garbage man and the water and the water carrier playing,
yeah, some guy they called up from the G League this morning, he'll be starting at point guard because these other guys are sitting out. As a sponsor paying top dollar to have a commercial on during that broadcast, they're going to get to a point where it's like, this is the point of diminishing returns. It's like we keep putting in more money to have our product, be advertised during these games, and people are not watching the games because the stars aren't playing. So why do we continue to do this? When that starts happening, then I think you will see a sense of urgency from the league to fix it. But as long as the league is making billions of dollars and raking in billions in TV revenue and merchandise, they're not going to do anything to change it. It's going to take the fan to just say, you know what? I'm not going to continue to pay top dollar to watch a subpar product. I'm not going to do it. I'll go watch the Greensboro Swarm. I'll go watch more college basketball. I'll do whatever. I'll wash my cat or just whatever it is. I'll do anything.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Anything other than watch NBA basketball if they don't fix it. That's what it's going to take at the end of the day.
Well, I from last episode we talked about Pete Maravich on a down note. Well, this is a kind of a down note too, not quite as in a different kind of way, but
not quite as somber. But yeah, it's still sad.
Well, Unfortunately, this whole podcast is based on that notion. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it probably.
Yeah, trying to find ways to make it better, folks. So
Yeah. So if everything was great in sports, we probably wouldn't be doing this.
yeah.
But I think in some ways it's really good to reminisce on, and that 1968 or 69 All-Star Game roster is out of this world.
I'm telling you, amazing. And I had so much fun watching that and just intrigued by how differently the game was played then as opposed to today.
Now, I want to do one more thing before we close out here. I played a clip there for the people who are listening audio only. I just want to let you know what that was. It was basically a clip from the WNBA AllStar Game. I'm not sure what year it was, but it was the opening tip-off. And so if you're watching the screen, the players wearing white jerseys on the right and the dark jerseys are on the left. The tip-off goes to the white jersey, to going, I guess, right to left into the basket. So the other team went the opposite way. So she's basically by herself. The player gets the ball, the white player who's wearing a white jersey takes the ball behind the basket, goes around to the baseline, to the wing, comes up. All her players are going down the other side of the court because they're going the wrong way. And so then they finally realize and come back. She comes back and then tries to lay up and has an air ball layup. It's like a blooper reel from the Washington Generals and the Harlem Globetrotters. So that was that clip in case you didn't see it. But you can check that out on the YouTube version. So, Greg, I'm going to give you the last word on this. I'll let you close out any way you like. Try your best to make sense of this.
All righty. Well, it's a challenge, but I think, the NBA and the state of the game is just a small sample of what's going on in sports in general. I think every major sport has its challenges as far as maintaining the integrity of the game. And I think that should be front and center in the players' minds and in the owners' minds. If you care about the NBA, and think about all the guys that played decades before you, guys that, didn't make a ton of money doing it, but they took pride in what they did and they took pride in the way they played. And just think about what they would think about the way the game is played today. If you care anything about the legacy of the game, have a little pride and go out there and compete. We shouldn't have to, as fans, beg you to do that. You should already be motivated to do that every time you step on the floor, because let's be honest, you don't know when the last time is going to be. You really don't. So do you want to look back on your career and say, hey, the last time I played, it was an embarrassment to myself and to the league because I did not compete the way I should have? These guys need to reflect and think about how blessed they are, because the percentage of athletes, and you've seen the numbers, the percentage of high school athletes that go on to play college ball is like what, 1%, 1.5%? The percentage of college players that go on to play in the pros, about the same numbers. It's a very small fraternity of guys. They should be proud that they made it to that level. Well, show that pride when you go out there and lace them up and play the game. I don't care if it is an all-star game. People paid hundreds, probably thousands of dollars to see you play in that game, and you basically just laid an egg. I don't care if you scored 211 points. It means absolutely nothing. So to me, these guys in the NBA, because as we mentioned before, kids watching them do what they do. So if that's what they're going to do, what do you think the kids are going to do when they get together and play in their games? They're going to do what they see their heroes do. So take your responsibility as a player and as someone that's carrying the torch for, Kobe and Michael and Kareem and Wilt and all these other guys that played at the highest level the right way, think about them, because you're kind of making them look bad too. And that's not good. So to me, take it a little bit more seriously, guys. Keep in mind the folks that are watching you play. And, let's try to keep the integrity of the game in mind and pride in mind when you go out there and play. Because again, pro sports, you're typically done by the time you're 30, 35 years old, if you're lucky. So make the most of it, because you're not going to be an NBA superstar forever. The shelf life is brief. So keep that in mind every time you go out there, and give it 110%, regardless of what the circumstances are. Preseason, regular season, AllStar game, pickup game after practice, whatever it is. Take it a little bit more seriously and be more appreciative of the guys that played before you that didn't have near the perks you do now as a result of their efforts.
And I gave you the last word, but I want to just comment on what you just said in terms of the stats from going from high school to college to pro. I pulled some numbers up. These are old numbers from 2006, but they probably still apply. The percentage for men's basketball to go from high school to college is 2.9%. To go from college to pro is 1.3%. But to go from high school to pro is, sit down guys, and listen to this, 0.03%. So, wow. Greg, I gave you the last word there. If you want to comment on that and close out, it's great. If not, I can close this out here. But those numbers are shockingly low for many people who don't know that, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. And again, that just speaks to you're in such rarefied air once you make it to the NBA or the NFL or whatever the league is. And, make it count, because there are so many people that would give their pinky toe to be in the position you're in now. So, keep that in mind and represent that fraternity well, and show a little bit of gratitude to the people that pay good money, people that make a tiny fraction of what you make to see you play.
Amen. Everybody, this is the Old Glory Games podcast. My name is Kyle. We are on Spotify. We're on Google, YouTube in the visual video format, and we're on Apple Podcasts as well. Greg, thank you so much for your help on this, and I'm excited to keep going forward. And until then, guys, I hope to see you in our next